Good morning and welcome to our panel, Women Supporting Women, a discussion with women and leaders in higher education. I am Kaylin Ramsey, Director of Member Engagement and Professional Development at MCCA. Our icebreaker topic today is who is a woman that inspires you? And for me, it is my sister, Kelly Randall. I can't even talk about her without tearing up. I love my sister. So if you haven't already, please let us know who inspires you in the chat. If you have any questions, you can also leave those in the chat, or if you have inspiring comments for our panelists today. Please connect with us on social using the hashtag #BetterTogether, and we will be sending a recording of this webinar to those that registered today. We are thrilled to be hosting this panel in honor of Women's History Month. This was Bobby's idea, and I jumped on board. I was like, yes, let's do this. I sent the email the second after he mentioned it to all these amazing women, and I'm thrilled that they were able to join us. So let's meet our panelists. President Dina McCaffrey, Jefferson College. Dr. McCaffrey is the 8th president of Jefferson College and the first woman to hold the position. McCaffrey previously served as Dean of Career and Technical Education and Director of Outreach and Educational Sites at the college. Before joining Jefferson College, she was Associate Director of MBA and Graduate Business Programs at St. Louis University. Chancellor Kimberly Beatty, Metropolitan Community College. Dr. Beatty is the first African-American leader in the 105-year history of MCC and the only African-American CEO in the Missouri Community College system. Beatty joined MCC from Houston Community College, the nation's 4th largest community college system, where she served as Vice Chancellor for Instructional Services and Chief Academic Officer. President Joanna Anderson, State Fair Community College. Dr. Anderson became the 5th president in State Fair Community College's 49-year history on July 1st, 2013. Anderson has more than 30 years experience working in the community college setting, including multiple departments at North Central Missouri College in Trenton, Missouri. President Barbara Cavalier, St. Charles Community College. Dr. Cavalier became the 4th president of St. Charles Community College in August 2016. With 35 years experience in higher education, she has held a variety of leadership roles, including president at San Jose City College and 20 years as administrator for the Dallas County Community College District. Wow, these are some great achievements. So let's get started because we have a lot of questions and not a lot of time. So our first question, I will have all of you answer, starting with Dr. Anderson, and then we'll continue in alphabetical order by last name. So Dr. Anderson, who is your female role model, or who is a female that inspires you?
Well, it was interesting to see that several people put grandmother. My grandmother was an educator at heart. She actually would have been a school teacher if women could be allowed to be a school teacher, but when you got pregnant with a kid, you couldn't be a school teacher. And so she was for a little while, but she was phenomenal, lived to be 106 and wanted all of her children to get educated and continue their education. So I think about my grandmother because the one thing that really inspired me, and I used it in my inauguration dress when I came here, she always said, do the right thing. Now, as a president, that's really hard to figure out sometimes, but that has been a guiding thing for me to do the right thing. So my grandmother.
Did she ever make it on the Smuckers segment of the, of the Today Show?
No, but she was truly absolutely phenomenal. I hope I got a little bit of her genes, I think, and she had a brain and a memory that just wouldn't quit. So
You did. Dr. Beatty, who is your female role model or a female that inspires you?
Well, I've got 3 categories: personal, professional, and kind of iconic. So the iconic is Michelle Obama. And mainly I keep in my mind in my leadership, when they go low, you go high. I've had to remember that just recently in some conversations I've had. Professional would be Dr. Christine McPhail and Irma Johnson Hadley. Both of those women were Black CEOs, and Irma Johnson Hadley just gave a sense of style that I've developed, and how I dress and walk, and all of those things are important. People don't realize it. And Dr. McPhail is where I've got my leadership chutzpah, probably. And then lastly, my personal role model is my mom. My mom raised me. She was a single mother. We didn't have very much. And she went to college and she made me study every single day. I said, I don't have any homework. She said, review. And I had from 5 to 7, when she was home, I had to study. And as a result, I had great study skills when I went to college, and it wasn't as hard for me as it could have been. So I'm certainly here today because of that foundation and all of the fingerprints from those women.
And I see the book in the background.
Yes.
Dr. McCaffrey, who is your female role model?
This was a hard one for me to answer a little bit because I never reflect on my role models outside of both my parents, and for different reasons. My mother, as a female, would be my role model more of, I say all the time, she stayed at home with 5 kids, and that is harder work than coming to work every day. And I learned that more and more as I was working throughout all my kids' lives. And I learned that because it was my friend who stayed at home that would call me and say, oh, they have math club after school today. Do you want me to bring home your daughter? So I didn't even have to worry about that. And that's what, just all those little extra things that get done. Not from a role model perspective, but more of a mentor. A boss I had when I worked at St. Louis University was an amazing woman who operated with so much integrity that even today, before I applied for the presidency, and she's retired, and I haven't talked to her in a while, I was emailing her, hey, can we get together for coffee? I need your help with this. And so it was always very humbling to work with great people like that. So.
And as females, I do feel like we have that community where we do text each other, hey, you want me to grab your kid? I love that about being a woman, because my female friends that have full-time jobs, we're always there for each other. Hey, do you need me to do this? And it is inspiring. Dr. Cavalier, who is your female role model? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Not unlike Dr. Beatty, I kind of separated the two. I have personal female role models, but I chose today to talk about my professional female role models. And I would say that I have been mentored and inspired by 2 incredible Latino women who were both my supervisors at certain stages in my journey in becoming an administrator. My first supervisor was Dr. Karina Gardea, and she taught me so much about passion and compassion for students, about work-life balance and the value of family and who we are as individuals and who we are as leaders. And then the other inspiring female leader was Dr. Rita Cepeda. When she was the Chancellor of the San Jose Evergreen Community College District, she gave me my first opportunity to be a female leader. And she taught me how to be more trusting. She taught me how to have great courage and how to survive in trying times as an administrator. When you become a CEO, it can be very, very challenging. So how wonderful it was to have a role model who taught me early on, as Dr. Beatty said, how to rise above and how to have that grace and that compassion amid significant challenges.
That's awesome. And I'll go on to our next question. And again, I will ask all of you to answer in alphabetical order. Work-life balance, as you talked about, Dr. Cavalier, isn't a realistic concept for most of us. There's a lot of advice out there on work-life balance, but the truth is most people aren't interested in advice on how to balance their work life with their personal life. Instead, they want to know how to juggle both. As successful women leaders, you know that the work never stops. So what do you do to juggle your professional with your private life so that you, your college, and your family can all thrive? Dr. Anderson, you want to start?
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, I would say sometimes I'm not very good at this. And probably I would say the rest of the panel would say that as well. It does take a lot of sacrifice, I think. And I kind of come from the generation where I don't know that we expected to have it all. So I may have a different perspective than some others. But one of the things that I do personally is that especially I found in this year of experiencing COVID, we don't have as many activities on campus because I try to be at every activity as much as possible. We have a farm that's away from Sedalia. And so I've been able to spend more time at weekends on the farm. And I have grandkids. So, and they're kind of close. So my escape really is that when I'm here, and I'm in Sedalia at State Fair Community College. But when I can get away on a weekend, then I kind of just turn off. Obviously, we're never away from work because of all of the technology. But it's very important. And I look back and I think about that, and women do this, the sacrifice that they give up with their children. And then you realize that as with your grandkids, it's a little different. And so I've been able to make up some of that time that I missed out because of work with my kids. I'm finding the joy of that with my grandchildren.
That's so sweet. And congratulations. That's great. Dr. Beatty, how do you juggle your professional with your private life?
I was raised that as a family, you always have dinner together. And so my husband and I, we have breakfast and dinner together. So I can work out in the morning and be on the phone with one of the presidents or managing some things. And many people who may even be on this seminar have heard me say, Kelvin, breakfast is ready, dinner is ready. And then I say, okay, I gotta go. We're getting ready to have breakfast or dinner. So I make that is one thing that is pretty sacred, somewhat unconsciously, but sacred for us. And I love cooking. And I love the whole farm to table thing. So when I was in Virginia, I developed a hobby of gardening. And so I find peace and balance. So I have to do the husband thing, but I also have to do the me thing. And so I will come home, I'll talk on the phone and do business all the way home. And then the first thing I do is go out to my garden, kind of have a little peace there, or I cook dinner, and that's where I reflect and really center myself.
I love that you brought up the me time. It's not really in the question, but that is so important. You've got to have your me time and take care of yourself. Thank you. Dr. McCaffrey.
Yeah, for me, what I have learned over the years, a few things. One is you need to be patient with yourself and have grace because you are always harder on yourself than those around you that you feel you're missing out on or something like that. And as a quick little example of that, I also know I still call it work-life balance. It's a little more unbalanced now than it used to be, but my family knows, I've worked in higher ed so long, my family knows August at the start of a school year and May at the end of the school year, I am pretty much all in at work because you have to be. The hardest times to balance that though are when I have a kid graduating high school. And so not only do you have all of your work functions that you have to be at, you also have, an honor ceremony or this or that and graduation and all those kinds of year-end events. So, but finding that balance is really important. And the reason I said have grace and be patient, my youngest is a junior in high school, and he actually goes to a Catholic school here in St. Louis area. And part of them receiving their class ring includes a mass. And that was last Thursday night or 2 Thursdays ago. And it's a board meeting night. And the board meeting starts at 5:30 and the mass is at 7. And it's a good 45 minutes to an hour from my office and our boardroom. And I actually was like, was beating myself up about this. I actually talked to my board member and just said, just so you know, after the meeting, my board chair, I have to get out of here as soon as I can because my son has this. And it was something we talked about before I even applied to be president, was how hard that was going to be. And like Joanna said, COVID has actually helped me in my first year of still being able to balance with my youngest being, still at home. Well, I told my board chair that, and literally there wasn't that much on the agenda, so it was only a 15-minute meeting, which is unusual. I mean, it was really unusual, but he was really cognizant of that. So that helped me to keep that balance. But on the other hand, probably 3 days before the event, I was talking to my son Ryan, and I was telling him, I go, just so you know, I will be there. I will probably be late. I am sorry. And he goes, why are you even going to this thing? It's not a big deal. And I'm like, it's a big deal to me. It should be a big deal to you. And he's like, Mom, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And so then I was telling my mom this story, and I go, I'm hoping that him being a 17-year-old boy and just how he is, and not him saying, Mom, you miss everything. Why does it matter if you're this? But I got over that guilt, and I said, you know what? It's okay no matter how it turns out. So, and it worked out fine for me.
It is so true, though. Grace is so important. Give yourself grace. I like that. Dr. Cavalier, how do you juggle the two? Oh, you're muted again.
I'm trying to be good and not having my mic on, so my phone doesn't ring and disturb us. But I think if you find often that you are juggling, then probably you have not achieved that life-work balance. So in thinking about this question, I wanted to really answer this and address it to those aspiring female leaders who may be in the audience with us today. So here's what I would offer. I always tell my leaders, my female leaders, that either you manage your calendar or your calendar manages you. So I think the first lesson in being successful is being strategic. When you go to work, manage your calendar in such a way to where you don't always have meetings back to back. If I have a major report that I need to work on, I schedule time in my calendar so I won't be interrupted and I can really focus and do a good job on that. Pre-COVID-19, I would schedule time in my calendar to be able to walk around campus and visit informally with people. So that is a really big lesson, to really think about how you manage your time. The next thing that I would offer as aspiring leaders is that you really need to think about how you delegate. I think back when I was a younger leader, and I thought, oh my goodness, I got to do everything. And I got to have my hands on everything. And if it's not perfect, it's not okay. And I think with time and hopefully a little bit of wisdom, I've learned that things are going to be okay if you delegate, if you let other people take on leadership assignments. And then the last thing I would say, which I think is a message that you've heard from all the other distinguished women on this panel, is take time for yourself. If I think about the two mentors that I mentioned earlier, I got to tell you, they always used up their vacation every year. And so that taught me, it's okay to take your vacation time. Don't hoard it. Don't hold on to it. Take it. You need it. It's important. That's part of finding that work-life balance.
And I feel when you do that, you come back ready to go. You're recharged. Absolutely. And you can dive in that much better. Thank you very much. All right, we'll go on to our next question. And again, it's for all of you, so we'll go in order. Women's careers are being held back by an entitlement gap in the workplace, according to new research, which heightens barriers to progression, pay, and gender equality. And we've all heard of that pesky glass ceiling. So what challenges have you faced climbing the ranks to reach your position of president or chancellor? And do you feel the glass ceiling is being lowered? Dr. Anderson?
Well, I think we have some really great examples nationally of the glass ceiling being lowered. And the fact that we have, Kamala Harris is a female vice president is tremendous nationally for women to look at her as a role model. And here at State Fair Community College, I wasn't the first female president. Dr. Marcia Drennan was the first female president and came before me. So I think that was a great opportunity that people here had the chance to see a female leader prior to my arrival. That's not been the case at the other two community colleges where I've worked. They have yet to have a female president. There are females in leadership roles. So one of the things I would say is that, yes, the glass ceiling is being broken or shattered, or at least it has a crack in it, but there's a lot of ground yet to be made by women. And if you just look at, we have 12 community college systems here in Missouri, and you've got the 4 who are leaders of their institution, either as a chancellor or a president. Now, we have other women in leadership roles, but I think it's something that we have to be aware of. We have to mentor women so that they want to be leaders, as Barbara said. I think that really is important, that we guide individuals. So I hope the women that are watching here today are getting inspiration. I am, from listening to the other leaders that are on here, and I think that sometimes we just don't understand that what may appear to be not a big deal to us could really be an inspirational moment for somebody who is watching and guide and, paying attention. So I hope that women are feeling encouraged. It's challenging because, as you mentioned, all of the things that women have to balance. And honestly, in my own life, I don't see that men have quite that responsibility yet. So we've got a ways to go.
I completely agree. Dr. Beatty.
It's definitely not been lowered. I don't want to, I think the ceiling is higher for women in a lot of cases. And it's been cracked, but we do have a long way to go. And I probably should start there so I don't get too passionate about the topic.
Oh, I love you. Dr. McCaffrey.
It's interesting. I have a little bit different perspective. And again, like I mentioned, my son goes to a Catholic school. I went to an all-girls Catholic school. And when you're in high school, it was you could do anything. And so you were never held back, or, something as simple as a table needed to be moved. There were no males there, males to help with that. So you just started doing things. And I come from a family where that was my parents too. And my sister and I are different, but equally successful, I feel. And so is there a glass ceiling? I'm not going to say there isn't, but I have never felt that I wasn't able to apply to be a president or any job opportunity I've been given. And part of that may also be I was a college athlete. And, that was after Title IX. So equality in sports, as it was big back then, that I didn't see it as much throughout my career and the opportunities I had because of those different things. So is it there? Yeah, I think there are people experience it. I've been lucky enough and I'm outspoken enough that maybe that's part of it, that I just come across as not a bulldozer, because I don't think I do. I hope people from Jefferson College on this call don't feel that I am, but that I am who I am. And I always say that. And you'll get to that question about being a first female president. I hope I'm the president because I'm the most qualified for the job and not because I'm a female. So.
And Carrie says she is not a bulldozer. So Carrie Greer, thank you. You're not a bulldozer. Dr. Cavalier.
Well, I think certainly if you look at the data, we're seeing a trend of more CEOs entering, females entering into CEO positions. And that's a good thing. But have we raised the ceiling? No, I don't think so. I think we have a ways to go. Certainly, as I think about my experience, I can tell you honestly that every position I've gone into where I've followed a male in the same position, I've made less money than they have. Certainly, I think all of us on this call today, we all carry scars. And if we had time, we would have a story to tell you about each one of those scars that we bear. Is it different? I don't think so. Are women treated? It's all about how we're treated and whether we're respected at the same level, we're compensated at the same level. I'm not seeing great change in that area. And so I think we still have a lot of work to do. And I think we have to be diligent in moving forward. And hopefully we'll continue to see change.
Yes, hopefully. And I think with discussions like this, we can only move forward, right? Hearing you guys speak, hopefully conversations like this, keep making that ceiling come down. We'll go on to the next question. And again, it's for all of you. Recent projections based on economic scenarios modeled by McKinsey and Oxford Economics estimate that employment for women may not recover to pre-pandemic levels until 2024. 2 full years after recovery for men. Without significant action, such as additional employer support and training programs, there is a real danger that women in the workplace could face its steepest sustained decline since World War II. What do you feel employers can do to ensure that women who have left the workforce during the pandemic are offered opportunities to make up for lost time? Dr. Anderson, we'll start with you again.
Wow. Well, one of the things that we are looking at here at State Fair Community College is the work from home or the remote work. We know that that has been really a great benefit for individuals with families as they have had to teach their kids from home. And I think they have balanced that really well. And we're getting ready to put out a survey to ask our employees what they value as far as the compensation package so that we could look at moving some of those things forward with policy and changes, if that's what would help people remain in the workplace or come back into the workplace if they had to leave. This is a really challenging question because it just goes to the point that women don't have the same level of work as males. And so finding those occupations where your jobs are going to be sustained no matter what is really important. And that goes back to the career choices that women have and make. And so those decisions to get additional education so that they have those career choices and options open to them, I think are really important. And it just really does give us in the community college an opportunity to say to those individuals who may have stopped out of the workplace, come talk to us because hopefully we can encourage them and help educate them for careers that are more sustainable. And that's what we are all about here at community college. So I think this is an opportunity. Unfortunate for women that they have been impacted at a much greater level than men. But that means that we need to maybe rethink career options and help women do that.
Couldn't agree more. That's great. And I love that you came back full circle, back to community colleges. Dr. Beatty.
I think that was a great insight. My thought my immediate reaction to this question was around being intentional. I think employers as a college, employers everywhere, whether it's gender, race, there needs to be some intentionality in terms of training, recruitment, and retention. And this is something that organizations struggle with in general. But I think there's some intentionality that can occur, especially on the retention piece. I saw a comment about embracing women with that are parenting or with families. I guess there was federal legislation that required that you had to have rooms for breastfeeding and so forth. But there are small things like that in an institution, in an organization, any organization that you can do that would embrace things that are specific to women and create an atmosphere where they feel welcome. So that's women specific, but I think that also applies across a number of spectrums where there are small things that can be done where it's like, oh, okay, they embrace families, they embrace women, they embrace Hispanic, Black, and Brown people. Every organization has to, and I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say we didn't struggle with that ourselves. So I think there just has to be some intentionality, whether it's COVID, people losing their jobs in the pandemic, or people just searching for jobs. I've seen some really good examples of great workplaces that I think put that bar really high in terms of making people feel welcome.
I love that. I love that. Dr. McCaffrey.
I think both of them just hit it on the head, and I'll just add one more small thing. A lot of places have more formal mentoring programs, but I also think us, especially at the top, but as we rise within organizations, it's our jobs to mentor women, men, anyone. Again, just like Dr. Beatty said, it's everyone, but especially I have always said to people who, whether they work for me or rising stars or whatever, I'm like, okay, where do you see yourself? What do you want to do? What do you need to get there? Oh, you need more education for that. And I often said, and people who've worked for me can vouch to this directly for me, it is more important when you have a rising star that Jefferson College keeps you in that role than Dina McCaffrey keeps you reporting to her. And so how can I help you reach that goal? And if your goal is not to be here at Jefferson College because we don't offer what you want to do, I still want to help you because I think it's in the best interest of having a happy workforce that you are actually helping them grow throughout their careers. And I think that's important.
It is important. I like that. Dr. Cavalier.
Well, I think our policies are often driven by our compassion and wanting to do the right thing by our employees. I agree with everything that my distinguished colleagues have mentioned, so I won't repeat what they've already said. But I will share that at St. Charles Community College, we made the decision to take a very, very flexible approach with our employees during COVID-19. Even today, we are allowing for flexible work schedules. So we're allowing employees to work with their supervisors to work out what works for them. So we have some employees that are only coming to campus 2 days a week. And so I think it starts by saying, okay, we don't have to have everybody on campus, during this time. Let's take a step back. Let's let them have flexible work schedules. And I've had so many comments about how much that's appreciated, that we have allowed that, recognizing that these are such difficult times for so many of our faculty and staff, especially those that have families. And then again, just looking at all your policies and procedures and the kind of leave that you offer and the kind of flexibility that you allow to make sure that we are taking care of our employees.
I feel like when you invest in your employees that way too, they put that much effort into working for you. So I think that's
and
great.
I got to tell you, they've done great. I mean, we haven't missed a beat. If anything, we've proven that a flexible work schedule can be successful.
It is, and I echo that, and I think
Yeah.
it's great. And Brian, our fearless leader, has been doing the same for us. And I think we kind of all thought mentally 2021 is going to come and it's instantly going to be better. And
Yes.
It hasn't. My husband got COVID actually soon after, towards the beginning of the year, and I was like, no, it was supposed to be over. So I love that you're doing that for your employees. So we'll go on to the next question again. This one is for Dr. Anderson. What would be your advice to a new manager balancing work and family life?
Well, I think we've touched on some of that, but obviously I love Dr. Cavalier's answer about working with your calendar, making sure your calendar puts time in there for all of the things that you need to do as a manager. But, one of the things I'll say, and we kind of haven't touched on yet, is just developing relationships. And I'm sometimes not the best at that because I grew up, it was just, you get it done. And I don't need a lot of feel goods, I guess you could say. And so, but as a new manager, you would, need to connect with those employees that you're working with and find out what they want. What do they need? So to make sure that they're reaching their goals, that your whole department is being successful. I've worked at places where I wore a ton of hats because it was a small institution and didn't have as many other resources, outside resources. And I've worked at places where I had others to rely on. And so I think it really does depend partly on, as a new manager, what kind of work environment you're in. But I think those relationships, working with your employees to find out how you can work together as a team and doing some team building things. In past lives, I did team buildings that were really fun with the group that I worked with, and it really made us a more powerful um, entity, I guess, a division or a department. So those are some suggestions that I would give to new managers, and then get as much professional development as you can, either, and it's more available now than ever because you don't have to travel, and there's a great amount that you can tap into.
So a little shameless plug here. Please feel free to reach out to MCCA if there are professional development needs out there that you need. And we're happy to get that on the calendar. And I couldn't agree more. When you learn more about your team and who surrounds you, you work better together and probably more efficiently. So we'll go on to Dr. Beatty. Chris asks, what's the best pathway to becoming a college president? What challenges, if any, do you think you've faced as a woman president?
You know, something that was mentioned earlier, I think Dina said that I too have never felt that I didn't get something or feared not getting something because of, of being a woman. I was always taught, focus on your job, do good work, be good at what you do, and just let it happen and enjoy the journey. Sometimes we get so we can be somewhat too aspirational. Enjoy the journey and where you are at that time, because that skill is going to transfer and help you in some way. Even the skills that you may have out in the community and doing other things. I mean, I can go all the way back to when I was in California and as a faculty member and then as a dean, and there are things that I pulled from that experience that if I hadn't taken the time to live in that moment, and I'm just thinking about the next job, I see a lot of people that do that. And I think it's important to enjoy the journey of where you are. I'd also say hone your craft. I mean, it's really maybe it's I don't know that it has anything to do with gender, but my work ethic is I want to be good at what I do. I want to do it 100%, 125%. And, you know, I want to be recognized for the work that I do. And I think that I have been.
I feel in so many of these answers you guys are giving that there's no one else on this call. It's just you guys speaking to me, because you're touching on so many personal things, you know, that I've gone through or going through. And thank you very much. I hope other people do feel the same as I do. I could sit here all day and listen to you guys. Dr. McCaffrey, Laura asks, I am new to a director level role. What advice do you have for finding balance and overcoming imposter syndrome?
Well, I think it's important to be genuine and to make sure that, you know, when I've always been one, I don't always overcome that imposter syndrome either. But, you know, I always said as a new director or new boss, if something is good and you're getting praise, it's the whole team. If something is bad and something goes wrong, it's on me. Even if I didn't make the mistake, that's very important to me about watching that and, you know, really trying to find that balance. The other thing is I'm pretty type A, and I think probably at the higher up you get, there's a lot of type A's out there because I think Dr. Cavalier mentioned it when she said, realize you don't have to do everything yourself rather than taking on more and more. So try to remember that, and that helps you find balance also. And one thing that helped me is when you take advantage of opportunities, when you do good work, when you are in work and working hard and taking advantage of it, when you need to find balance because you have a child or a parent or something going on in your personal life, your boss or whoever is more accepting of that and understands that balance is important. And, you know, I always tried to say I work because of my family. And my family always comes first. And even sitting in this chair today, I would say if something happened, if 99% sure I would be at whatever I need to do, or if it was an emergency. And so try to keep that in mind too in finding balance.
Thank you. Dr. Cavalier, Claudia asks, do you find that your points of view are given equal weight in discussions of finance or other previously male-dominated categories?
So I thought this was an interesting question in that I never considered finance a male-dominated category. And so maybe that's to my benefit. So I started early on. I just simply recognized as a leader what were the skills that I needed to develop. And quite frankly, I've known a number of male CEOs that haven't really had that breadth and depth of knowledge with finances and the budget that one would expect at that level. So I think as female leaders, my advice would be uh, to make sure that you gain the experience and the knowledge and all the operational functions of a college so that you can be well prepared to engage in any conversation with any group. And so I've always felt very confident in my abilities when it comes to finance. But that's because I was prepared and I set goals. So I would just say if there are female leaders out there who maybe feel like their voice isn't heard, engage in professional development, seek out a mentor, learn, put yourself in a position to where you are well positioned to engage in any conversation that you may need to have related to the college and its operations.
Yes, and I'm hearing from you too. Be prepared and realize if you do have something you're not great at, maybe strive to get better at that. But I love that.
Yes.
You're right. And it is kind of a point of view too. If you don't see women as not having that being a weakness or not being a role of women, then I love that you didn't even see it that way. So it's all about perspective. Yeah, I like that. Dr. Anderson, Tiffany asks, what advice would you give yourself knowing what you know today? I like this question.
Well, I think this is a really tough question because obviously we are, all of us, where we are today because of our past experiences, whatever they were. But one of the things that I would say is that maybe be willing to take risks sooner. I think I was a little hesitant early on and had some, I felt like I was qualified definitely for a dean's position, but didn't, throw my hat in the ring, so to speak. But after having a couple that I just felt were somewhat deficient and not good leaders of our department, I thought, well, I can do that. I can do a better job than that. And so so I do think early on I was not as big of a risk taker, and that might have made a different path for me. But and then also I think being able to talk with those that of influence about what you want, what's important. And sometimes we just don't do that. But I always tell folks here, my door is always open. Very few people decide to walk in and talk to me, but I want that opportunity because if there's something that I need to hear about our organization or what's important for them, then I want to hear it. So I would say be willing to speak out and be willing to take risks. I would have, I had great mentors, so they got me there, but
Mentors, we all need those. Dr. Beatty, Mackenzie asks, across higher education, where are efforts being made with success to add higher education to the list of professions that are family friendly? We kind of talked about that before, and you touched on that a bit. For example, remote work, flexible scheduling, on-campus childcare, et cetera. How can we move that forward in Missouri and at our colleges, and what are the barriers? Sorry, that's a very loaded question. Oh, you're muted.
And I probably focused on the last part of the question. I have recently found myself saying it really doesn't have to be this hard. And I think in having lived all over the country, everywhere except for the Pacific Northwest, I think there's what I find interesting is about how the state embraces higher education in general. It's not, I think, our government is doing the best they can, but it's, I think, very disappointing to me having the experience that I do, that it's not prioritized in the way that it should be. And that makes it difficult for a lot of the things that are loaded into that question to occur. Um, and those are just some of the realities. I mean, what I see and feel like in this state, it's university, K-12, and then community colleges. And we see that whether it's in funding, whether it's in how our voice is heard as a collective. And I just think that if that is a primary barrier to that question that would prevent, that keeps us from moving forward in our state.
Thank you for that. I agree. Like you, without getting too passionate, I'll be quiet. But yes, I agree. Thank you very much. Dr. McCaffrey, Lacey asks, as a mother of two just returning from maternity leave, I am finding myself so exhausted and at times overwhelmed with juggling my career and home life. What is your best piece of advice for how to successfully manage your career aspirations with also taking care of your family and personal life?
That's a hard one. Especially as a young mother or with young children, it is tough to figure out how to balance that, especially if your baby isn't sleeping through the night. That makes it that much harder. I will tell you, and this goes back to one of the questions sort of about the finance discussions. Before I ever knew I wanted to be a president, I actually went and got my MBA. And that was really smart to me. Well, not only does that help me in my job, but my husband would call me some names about me and my budget. To this day, I still keep a budget and I plan everything. But way back when I was working and so much going on, I figured out what can I give up that isn't as important. And because of me and my budgeting, I was able to get a cleaning lady come to my house twice a week. My kid, and I used my kids as my excuse, and then I used my doctorate program as my excuse. Well, here I am many, many years later, and I still have my cleaning lady coming to my house because on a Saturday, I'm not going to be doing that all day on a Saturday when I want to spend time with my family. And so maybe it's not a cleaning lady, but know that there will be things there for you to do. There's always going to be something else to try to manage those things. And don't be so hard on yourself. I already used the example of my son and how I was beating myself up over possibly being late to this event at school. And he didn't necessarily notice it as much. And then, so that's harder on me. That was like an aha moment. And then the last thing I just want to, because our expectations are usually higher than others. And it goes back to that question about balancing and remote work and what policies are there. Your boss, others around you, when you are taking those opportunities and leading and moving into a higher position, people recognize you and the strengths you bring to the workforce. So therefore, if you have to call in and say, I need some personal time this morning, and I don't know if your kids go to daycare or where they are, but you stay home and take a nap in the morning. Kim mentioned having breakfast with her husband every day and you'd work around that. Do that, because if you don't do that for yourself, you're not good for your family and you're not good for your job either. And you really have to take care of yourself.
It's so true. Dr. Cavalier, another heavy question for you. What is the best one concrete action that I and others viewing this, and this is from Jean, by the way, can take daily to eradicate bias against women?
Wow. I think that approaching any kind of bias or discrimination, it's seeking to understand and have awareness. It's having compassion and really caring for someone, not just in their position, but as a human being, being kind. But also, I think at the end of the day, you have to be a champion, right? You have to be a champion for the rights of others. And you've got to find different ways that you can do and the different ways to advance the rights of all of our employees. And that there's so many ways that's done. It's done informally. It's done formally through policies and procedures and actions. It's done not just in our connections with our campus community, but our larger community. But I mean, there's so much that we can do and should do with this work.
like
And I
the-
think having this panel discussion today is a great step forward in raising that awareness.
I like that you called it a champion. In my family, we call it being a leader and doing the same thing that you said and sticking up for others and being kind. And we call it being a leader. But I think for my kids, I might change it to champion now. Thank you. I think that would hit home with them a little bit more. So we have a question for Dr. Beatty. You are the first female African-American chancellor. What does that mean to you? At MCC, that is. Sorry, I should be more specific.
So I think there's 3 ways I would answer this. I mean, practically, and from a practical sense, I'm sure it means the same for me that it would mean for any of my colleagues that are coming into the role. I don't know that race changes the impact of the work that you have to do. So it's probably pretty similar. On a maybe social justice or social level, societal level, it's unfortunate that we find ourselves still saying, and every administrative job I've had, as I reflect on it now, I've been that first. And I think that is sad and is unfortunate in some degree. And on a personal level, as a result of that, there's a lot of weight that comes along with it. I mean, there's huge expectations of, oh, well, now that you have, you're the first, or there's a lot of, as you mentioned, leading into this, even at the table with the presidents and chancellors, there's a lot of, imagine, maybe not in that forum, but there's a lot of expectation that you would have this voice that you would bring to every conversation. And I don't know that that's necessarily, I think that's important and that's an aspect of what I do and who I am, but it doesn't define me, nor do I want it to define me per se.
Someone just said, I heard on the news, and now I'm kicking myself that I don't remember who it was, but we will reach a day where we don't have to put female in front of it anymore. It'll just be leader, because we'll start to break down those barriers. Thank you. And Dr. McCaffrey, same question to you. You are the first female president at Jefferson College. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think what Kim Beatty just said is really similar. I keep saying, and I've said it already, I guess I'm just humbled that I was chosen for this job. I happen to be female. People remind me all the time, you're the first female president. And it just goes up, I guess some of it back to my upbringing too, that I'm just glad that I was selected into the position. But Kim, and you just hit on the line right there, that hopefully we won't have to say that. At some point, I hope my kids, and my oldest is 25, my youngest 16, that they're not thinking in those terms throughout their career.
Yeah. We have one question that popped in, so I'll just leave it up to you guys who wants to answer it. And if you need to get off the call, I understand some of you have appointments after this, so please feel free, if you need to leave the call, do so. But if you do have time for this question that came in, how do you address the issue of paid maternity leave in our workplace? For example, most faculty do not have paid leave when they have children and are forced to time their pregnancies for summer break, which is not ideal.
I can't answer this from that perspective because we do have paid sick leave for our faculty and staff. So it's different at Jefferson College.
I would say it's the same here, is that we have paid sick leave, and regardless of, the sick leave is the same for all of our employees.
And I saw that came up, that the comment about paid sick leave is not the same as maternity leave. That is how we fund it, is, under FMLA, that they can use their sick time. And our sick time isn't where it rebanks at the end of a year. So employees can continue to accumulate that year after year. So, and we also offer benefits for, short-term, long-term disability and things like that for employees who don't have enough sick time. And I understand where you're coming from, that it's not the same.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for touching on that. Appreciate your knowledge on that. Okay, so for time's sake, we do need to wrap it up. We've got to keep time in mind. So I do want to thank all of you guys, the four of you, for being on this webinar. I mean, you all responded immediately, yes, let's do this. And I love that. And as Beyonce says, who runs the world? Girls. Thank you to our attendees for being here and your great participation. I love seeing comments come in the chat, and I loved all of you telling us who are your female role models and who inspires you. It was very enlightening and good to hear. We do have some upcoming events that I want to share really quickly. On April 15th, we have Marty Leathers with us virtually to discuss initiatives on the state level regarding workforce development. And on April 28th, Brian Milner will give his infamous legislative update. Everyone loves the legislative update. They like to hear what's going on at the Capitol. So please join us for those. Call for proposals and nominations for convention are open until April 2nd. So please get these into us soon, and you can check our website for more upcoming events and information. We will be sending a recording of today's webinar to everyone that registered via email. So don't worry, you can watch us and you can skip through me talking. Just go to these wonderful women giving their answers. And again, please share today's experience on social using the hashtag #BetterTogether. Thank you guys again for joining us. I can't thank you enough. And I have to say, listening to you guys speak, I knew the answers would be great, but I was like shaking at some of the comments and responses you were giving. So thank you very much. It's very empowering. Have a great day. Thank you very much.